This is how you're going to fall completely in love with yourself and be obsessed with the person looking back at you in the mirror.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but go get your nails done, go get your hair done, put makeup on before you leave the house, get out of those pajamas and put real clothes on also before you leave the house. Start taking care of the way that you look. The way that you treat your looks is a form of self-respect.
You know, recently when I scroll through social media, I see so many women glowing with their clean skin, clean diets, clean homes, even clean energy. And then all of a sudden I just look around and I see cat toys scattered all over the apartment, messy hair, old pajama, and I catch myself thinking, wait, do I actually love myself? Because according to the internet, I'm definitely failing the assignment. And so that got me thinking, how did something that used to be about care, compassion, and presence quietly turned into pressure, performance, and perfectionism? You know what I mean? When did self-love become a silent expectation to constantly improve and never fall apart? I mean, sure, things like glowing skin, balanced meals, and clean spaces, for example, do help us to feel better, but is it really self-love? Or is this polished pursuit of being our best selves just another way to hide the fact that deep down, we still feel like we're not enough? Well, let's talk about it today. If you're new here, my name is Anastasia, and here on my channel we talk about social media trends, recent events, and all things wellness. And as always, before we start, I just want to remind you to follow me here on YouTube not to miss any future uploads, and of course to support my channel and support my work. And well, now get comfortable, grab your snacks and your drinks, and let's already get started. So how did it happen that something as beautiful as self-love became so toxic online? I mean, real self-love is truly beautiful and empowering, right? Because it teaches us to slow down, to pay attention to our needs, and to be kind and gentle to ourselves. It reminds us that we deserve love and respect even when we are tired, messy, or not at our best. And most importantly, it teaches us to accept and love ourselves as we are. But somewhere along the way, this beautiful idea got really twisted and started looking like just another thing we're expected to perform perfectly, you know what I mean? So the question is, what is it about self-love that makes it feel so toxic these days? One of the most popular ideas in self-love culture is accepting and loving who you are, which of course is a beautiful idea, because we all have parts of ourselves we don't like, things we're ashamed of or things we criticize daily, and all of that of course creates a lot of anxiety and self-doubt. So learning to love yourself fully with all your strengths and flaws really does sound like the healthiest thing we could possibly do, But at the same time, this beautiful idea started to be used as the way to avoid change. And so it turned into this is who I am, just deal with it. And so people started to set boundaries everywhere, protect their peace 24/7, communicate every feeling and emotion, and proudly say they don't owe anyone anything. And maybe this idea may sound empowering for a moment because it carries so much freedom, but at the same time it started to lead to narcissism, lack of self-reflection, isolation, and a total lack of responsibility. We constantly started to hear the messages about loving ourselves, living the way we want, not blaming or criticizing ourselves, and accepting all our emotions and feelings. And of course, on one hand, all of that can truly make our lives brighter, more fulfilling, and more peaceful. But unfortunately, on the other hand, this modern idea of self-love turned into a form of self-protection. Because we stopped asking ourselves uncomfortable questions, we stopped reflecting. We started justifying everything we do with how we feel. And we just got stuck in our comfort zones, trapped in our fears and insecurities. We started to think only about our own goals, feelings, and needs, completely ignoring the feelings and needs of others. And of course, as a result, we became less empathetic, less understanding, and started avoiding real connections. And so what was once meant to make us more compassionate and self-aware now, unfortunately, makes us more fragile and self-absorbed. Because in all these messages about acceptance, boundaries, and protecting your peace, we forgot a few important things. We forgot that feelings aren't facts. We forgot that self-love is not about blind acceptance. It's about being honest with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. We forgot that it's about taking responsibility for the things that truly matter to us. It's about admitting our mistakes and understanding that being a human means changing, growing, and learning. And most importantly, we forget that we're social beings and we truly learn, grow, and heal only through connections with others, not isolation. And so that's why so many people today feel lonely and anxious. That's why so many people, instead of enjoying life, building real connections, and simply having fun, just want to escape to some retreats or stay at home with a cup of coffee in silence. Because real self-love was never meant to be about isolation, selfishness, or disconnection. True self-love was always about working on yourself, learning who you are, understanding your needs, taking care of yourself, changing, growing, learning, and finding a way to connect with the world that feels comfortable and safe to you. Self-love was always about keeping your heart open to life, to people, and of course to yourself. Another popular idea in self-love culture is that if you truly love yourself, you have to work on yourself. You have to grow, evolve, and constantly become better, prettier, stronger, thinner, calmer, more productive, more successful, etc. And while I do believe that growth is a natural part of being a human, I also see that this message creates a lot of pressure, because it quietly tells us that who we are right now is not enough, and that we have to fix ourselves. And so this kind of self-love just easily turns into another form of self-criticism and self-control, just wrapped in a prettier package. It just hides behind wellness routines, behind success, clean diets, clean spaces, perfect habits, and the idea of becoming your best self. But unfortunately, underneath all of that, there is still the same old fear, the fear of not being good enough, not beautiful enough, not young enough, not successful enough, etc. And so, of course, this endless race to get to that perfect point doesn't really bring us closer to peace or to ourselves, It just makes us more exhausted, more anxious, and more disconnected from who we actually are. Because even though it feels like we can do whatever we want or be whoever we want, at its core, this whole self-improvement narrative still comes from the system that treats us as products that constantly have to be marketed. And so, of course, the logical question is, should you stop improving yourself? Well, yes and no. Because growth can be a beautiful thing, but only when it comes from curiosity, love, acceptance, enjoyment, and the desire to explore, not to prove. But when it starts to drain you, to make you feel unhappy and like you're always behind, then of course it's no longer about loving yourself. And that's actually the point when you should pause and bring the focus back to yourself, to rethink your values, to bring back your own voice, and to allow yourself to explore life outside of the system. Of course, one of the key ideas in modern self-love culture is all kinds of practices, right? Affirmations, journaling, manifestation, raising your vibrations, candles, crystals, and so on. And I get it. In times of chaos and uncertainty, we all need to feel like we have control over something, right? So I understand why these practices may feel inspiring and empowering. They can help us to feel calm in the moment, more peaceful, more grounded, and a bit more hopeful about tomorrow. But at the same time, very often this kind of magical positive thinking slowly disconnects us from reality, and turns into denial, which actually keeps us from growth. Because imagine, you keep hearing from every corner that happiness is your choice, that you create your own reality, that you have to love yourself, right? But in reality, for example, you're going through some negative, difficult experiences, and you don't really feel that happy. And so, of course, you start thinking, well, if I feel this way, if this is happening to me, then maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe I'm not thinking positively enough, maybe I'm not loving myself hard enough. And so, of course, you start feeling guilty and anxious because you feel like you're not living up to that perfect image of yourself, right? And so step by step, you just start suppressing those emotions and feelings and just shutting down. And of course, by doing that, you just stop being honest with yourself, when honesty is one of the main key parts of self-love. Because it's honesty that helps us to cultivate a deeper understanding of our thoughts, emotions, and feelings, which of course increases our awareness, our emotional intelligence, and ultimately helps us to grow. Because only when we go deeper into our thoughts, emotions, and feelings, we start to recognize and understand parts of ourselves that were once hidden. So again, we come to the question, should you stop doing all those practices? Well, not really. Because as I said, on one hand, those kind of practices may help you to feel more grounded, more peaceful, and even help you to understand what you really want, which is essentially potential for your growth. But on the other hand, you have to remember that life is a complicated thing, you know. There are moments that simply don't depend on you. There are moments when you have to go through negative emotions, experiences, and thoughts, and that's a completely normal part of life. Because not everything happens for a reason, you know. Sometimes things just happen. Sometimes life feels messy, and that's completely normal. You should not ignore or deny it. Because self-love is not about ignoring negative parts of life or forcing yourself to be positive all the time. It's about being honest with yourself in every moment, you know, learning how to face those moments with kindness, gentleness, and compassion. And of course, building a healthy relationship with yourself inside and out. You know, recently I came across this beautiful thought that nature created us as one-of-a-kind beings meant to reflect its diversity. But for some reason, humans decided to create standards. Yet, if we look at nature, there are no wrong shapes, forms, or lines, no ugly colors or textures. There is no better or worse in nature. It simply exists as it is. And we still admire it, we still get inspired by it, and we find our peace in it. And we humans are a part of that same nature, so we too can simply be. Because no matter how much we try to define perfect or give meaning to everything, at the end of the day, life is just a journey with no clear beginning, middle, or end. There are no right turns, no perfect directions, no perfect choices. There is just being. And so self-love personally to me is allowing ourselves to be as we can be, with all our strengths and flaws, with love, with curiosity, with joy and sadness, with softness, kindness, understanding, and honesty. It's not about trying to fit ourselves into one definition, you know? It's about allowing ourselves to be different, to change, to grow, to shift, to heal, or to simply exist as we are. It's about allowing life to unfold, and as it does, allowing ourselves to feel, think, do, and experience all the things while staying true to who we are with both gentleness and boundaries. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you have any thoughts you would love to share about today's topic, just feel free to leave a comment below. As always, don't forget to like this video and follow me here on YouTube not to miss any future uploads, and of course to support my channel and support my work. And today I just wanna wish you to give yourself permission to simply be, you know, without rushing, without proving, without trying to fix yourself. Of course, thank you for watching today's episode. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and I will see you in the next one.